No, it's not the weather. I'm not gonna say that I don't like the humidity, because actually this is one of the reasons why I love Singapore the most. 30 degrees all year long and 90% humidity is exactly my type of weather to be happy. What I'm going to talk about is more personal things. Also, for those who have noticed, I've stepped up my camera game. So this video is recorded with my brand new Sony camera, and I hope you enjoy the better quality. Before I start, a short disclaimer. For those who have been following me for a while, know that I absolutely love Singapore with all my heart. It has become my happy place and my home of choice. I moved here from Switzerland 2 years ago, and I'm not looking back. And I hope to get PR someday. But no place in this world is perfect. So here are 5 things that I just don't like so much about Singapore. Number 1, and that is actually tied to the weather, and that is the strong air condition everywhere. So even though it's 30 degrees outside, I still have to carry a jacket with me all the time, because when you go into malls, cabs, buses, MRT, it is literally 10 degrees colder. I'm actually freezing when I'm going into a mall or even to a nail salon or a hairdresser. I always bring my jacket, and some of the hairdressers or nail salons, they give you even a blanket, so they know it's quite cold. And for me, this doesn't make any sense also for the environment, because they have to cool down and they use so much energy to cool down the buildings that you could save so much energy by just, putting the air conditioner on maybe 26 degrees instead of 18 or even like 15 at the cinema. I remember going to the cinema, I was freezing my ass off for like 2 hours. And it's actually also really interesting if you compare to Switzerland, where in winter, my friends told me that they struggled a lot because companies are saving money on heating, and it's so cold in their office that sometimes people don't want to go into office because it's literally so cold. So you see 2 different parts of the world, 2 totally different mentalities. Number 2, dating is hard. I've been single for a year now, and yes, I did try some dating. I tried dating apps, and I tried to date a lot of different guys from all nationalities. I dated Singaporeans, I dated expats, and I can really tell it is really hard to find someone to date. And I think the reason for this is that a lot of Singaporeans, they marry their high school sweethearts. It's very common to get married quite early at the age of 25, 26, because the government subsidizes HDB funding for young couples so that they can buy a house at a quite early stage. So Singaporeans tend to settle quite early. I'm 29 now, all the Singaporeans, they're already married. And then for expats, the issues is that, they come and go, and I don't want to fall in love with someone who leaves the country in maybe, half a year again. So for me as a woman alone in Singapore, I find dating really hard. And I've also exchanged my opinion with a lot of other girls at my age and in my situation, and I even know some girls or women that they moved back to Australia, moved back to Europe, to their home country, because they could literally not find a man here. I mean, it's not at this point for me yet, but I was just saying dating in Europe was definitely a lot easier for me. But who knows, my prince is out there somewhere. Another thing to mention about dating is the fact that most of the guys still live at home until they get married. I struggle a lot with this, because let me tell you, if a guy in Zurich is still living with his parents over the age of 30, I wouldn't even go on a date with him. This is the biggest red flag for me. I know it's a cultural thing and I totally respect that, but it's just very hard for me to get used to. Number 3. Bureaucracy is super complicated, and let me tell you, it took me months and multiple attempts to open a bank account in Singapore. I think I was at UOB for 4 times until I finally got to open a bank account. Something was missing in the document. They just rejected my proof of address because I didn't sign an own contract. I only had a sublease contract, and they wouldn't accept it. And then I didn't know what to do, because I couldn't just rent an apartment for proof of address, and the utility bill was also not under my name. Their hands were tied, and I didn't know what to do either. So I had to wait and find a different solution with the proof of address by buying a new mobile plan. So you see, bureaucracy is very inflexible. The amount of mental breakdowns I had at the UOB bank was unreal. And if you're a foreigner trying to find a job here, you can tell all the bureaucracy with MOM, visa, there's so many things that is just very complicated, and especially, yeah, to find an EP, to find a job, it has become harder and harder. I can speak for myself. I wrote 65 applications. I couldn't find a job in Singapore, which now is a blessing because that made me become a full-time content creator, which I'm super, super happy about. And I'm thanking the universe for, you know, closing all these doors to open the content creation world for me. But as mentioned, bureaucracy is really tough in Singapore. Number 4. Singaporeans live in their own sheltered bubble. And I don't blame them because Singapore is a safe haven, is a safe bubble if you compare it to other places in the world. It's the most clean, the most safe place I've ever been to. I can really tell that if someone living in Singapore and who has not traveled a lot, you can tell that their perspective is very sheltered. I can also tell that people don't watch the news as often as people back home in Switzerland, for example. They don't debate about what's going on in the world. I think sometimes they don't really know what's happening out there. So the other day, I saw a story on Instagram about a girl. She went to Paris with her parents, and in the MRT, someone tried to steal the wallet of her dad, and nothing happened. It just fell on the floor, but they could tell that someone was trying to pickpocket them. And she was so traumatized what happened that she said she wouldn't leave the hotel anymore for 2 days. She said Paris is so criminal. Getting pickpocketed is probably one of the least dramatic things that can happen when you travel abroad. People get stabbed in New York MRT every day. There are much worse things happening out there, but this just showed me that she's not used to even small crimes. Something else I noticed when I talk about Singaporeans living in their own bubble, there's less creativity for thinking outside of the box when I compare it to other places. You don't get to see a lot of, crazy street styles as you would see in Paris or in New York, or fashion designers who come up with extravagant designs, or artists who, go crazy. That's something I find a bit sad. I think it has to do with a lot of the strict regulations. People are sometimes a bit afraid of creating something new and something that people don't know. I sometimes wish people would be a bit more crazy, a bit more, thinking outside of the box. And number 5, people or institutions, companies can be so inflexible sometimes. Let me give you an example. I was at a cafe the other day and I asked for an iced Americano with some milk on the side. And she said, that's not possible. And then I said, why is not possible? And she said, well, it's not on the menu. And I said, but do you have Americano? And then do you have milk, right? And she said, yes. So why can you not serve it to me? Yeah, it's not possible. It's not on the menu. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't get this. Or at the restaurant the other day, I wanted to exchange the fries for rice. And she said, oh, it's not possible. And then she said, but there's rice on the menu as well. And she said, yeah, but it's not in this dish. This is something that is no problem in most of European countries. In Switzerland, I did that all the time, basically exchanged some parts of the dish. But here in Singapore, it's not possible. And it leaves me speechless sometimes. Probably it is because they don't know how to add it in their system to give you the price for it. I don't know why, but it's just, they're very inflexible. Or another example was when I wanted to attend a gym class, and it was the same studio, one spin class and one strength class. And I wanted to book the spin class, and I accidentally booked the strength class. And I asked, oh, can I join the gym class? It's the same price, the same time, and there are still spots available. Can I just basically go in this room instead of this room? And she said, no. I said, why not? And then it was impossible. So you see, these kind of things, sometimes I just don't understand Singaporeans. Overall, I think these things mentioned compared to other places, it's really not a big deal. It's a luxury problem, I know that. I still love Singapore. From the bottom of my heart, it's my happy place. I'm not planning to leave anytime soon. But leave me in a comment below what you think could be improved in Singapore, and watch this video up next because the algorithm knows that you might like it. Bye!